I have a quick one that's more, I should preface it by just saying like, this is not on the roadmap. This is like an experiment. Uh, so any potential customers watching, let us know if you think it's a cool idea. Um, okay, cool. So Gustav launched the color stuff like in the last 2 days, and then last night, Earl, Gustav, and I were DMing about like internal usage of the colors. And I was looking at these lists, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool, but it's like not really that useful in terms of information. Like, it'd be more interesting to just see the actual colors in the table." And then I kind of had this idea of like, what if you could, like, what if we could let customers define custom data renderers and then attach them to data in fields using something like tags. Um, so I basically whipped together like a little demo of that. Uh, so I have these two dimensions or two fields. They're just returning an array, so it's going to be a single value. But the idea is like here's an array of color values, hexes, and then if I go here and if I query them both, they're basically going to look the same. Cool. So now I have this special tag that I can apply. If I give it the hex tag and save my model, I refresh this page, it should pull in a hex renderer.
Oh,
Yeah, so the basic idea is like I was kind of thinking about text editors, like code editors, and so they all support various types of plugins. And like one of them is literally does this. It detects any hex colors in your code and then shows you a little chip with the color next to it. Yeah, so it's probably not a new idea. Like I hooked into a bunch of work that Richard's been doing, made this pretty easy. And so I'm sure that he and other folks have thought of something similar, but figured I'd just share the end-to-end demo to get people thinking about it.
I'll ask a question. That's actually I'm going to ask it on behalf of Colin. But could we define that in the front end somehow? Like I like kind of building off of Richard's like table work where you can like apply links or images. Can you? We could do something where you could like tag that column from front
Yeah,
end
I
and
mean,
then
it
push
literally,
model.
I'm getting attacked by trees here. Yeah, it literally builds into his work. The only real difference, and he's not here, so he might correct me. But when I looked at the code, the only real difference seemed to be um, he's implemented like a set of built-in formatters that live sort of as part of the UI Viz code and Viz configuration.
Mhm.
And this idea is very similar, but it hooks into this idea of like, what if you could just tag your data in the model directly and then bring in plugins that, when they are associated with those tags, produce some different rendered output. I think one of the questions I have in my head is like, obviously it's a security concern whenever you run anyone else's code, but maybe there are ways to do things like generate a markdown piece of rendering that we name, like we would call it like hex color renderer plugin. You write it as something like markdown in our sandbox, and then uh, associate that content with the tag. Maybe that's like one way to kind of make this more dynamic and customizable by users.
Yeah, anecdotally
Cool idea.
doing roadmap calls with people, when we show off the kind of heavily stylized tables like the pill fields and stuff like that, people get super excited. Like I got a request yesterday for whether folks could add a checkbox field and start tagging data with like a yes no, and it's like it's very much like put a little bit out and then people are being creative about, okay, like, oh, that opens up a new thing that I'd never thought about. Um, yeah, exactly, stuff like this. And just the idea of straddling, like, can configure in the UI and then can hit a button and make it structural. I think is like the really powerful path that we're taking people down. And so just continuing to lean into, like let people style things as a pill in the front end and then push it down, or let people color a chart series and then be like, okay, that series is always red in the model. I think is a direction we should keep leaning into because anyone can do the thing in the front end and then the development team can integrate it on the back end.
Yeah, I think generally just this idea of like, in the same way that VS Code and these text editors let developers write plugins to hook into their workflows, it'd be super cool if we could find ways to extend things like the table and like units of data generally throughout our system with the same kind of like extensibility.